You are listening to the Maple Footy podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the Maple Footy podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. This is the Canada Day special of Canada getting through to the quarterfinals of the Copa America, and it's fitting that I'm putting this up on Canada Day because, you know, a day to celebrate Canada, and it's a day to celebrate our boys getting to the quarterfinals in their first ever Copa America appearance. So, a lot to be happy about, for sure. Right off the top, another game goes by and another one of our players is getting racially abused on the internet. And this time it's our captain, Alphonso Davies. His Instagram is being flooded with racial slurs by presumably Chile fans. It's disgusting. CONMEBOL have done nothing but make statements. I think they've made like 2 or 3 at this point in this tournament alone. And it's just disgusting. Every federation is saying they want to kick racism out the game, but they're doing very little outside of making the statements to actually do anything. Like, find these people, suspend them from going to games, ban them from going to games. It's disgusting. It's 2024. These players shouldn't have to worry about the color of their skin. It's just gross. And everyone in Canada is, of course, behind Alphonso Davies. But, yeah, come on. Like, it's 2024. There should be nothing like this going on. And I think the federations really need to clamp down on punishment. But it's going to keep happening until serious consequences are brought forward and followed through on. That's my opinion. But I mean, it's just disgusting, isn't it? But now switching focus to the game, of course, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't a performance that was anything really special, but it's a performance that's enough to get us through to the quarterfinals. We need a draw, and we got a draw. It is a historic result. I don't want that to get lost. It sees us through the quarterfinals in our first ever Copa America. We are the first debutant of the competition to make it out of the group stage since Honduras more than 20 years ago. So definitely something to be proud of, and that is massive. Not many people had us making it out of the group, but we did. A win versus Peru and a draw against Chile were our 2 realistic bets, and that's exactly what we got. Other results also went our way to ensure that our 4 points was enough to get us through. I did talk last episode about us needing to implement the lessons that we're always on about that we've learned and get into this next round, and that's progress, as we keep on talking about. And that's what we've done. Yes, it's not a win, but it's not always a win, and that is tournament football. You don't always need a win to get through to the next stages of said tournament. And of course, that is what matters. Now, away from results, I am still waiting for Canada to really light up this tournament. But yes, results are at the top of the list of what you need in a tournament. But just under that is, of course, top tier performances. As I've said, if I was given a choice between a not great performance but a result, obviously you choose the result over, say, a good performance but falling short of the result. So I do always take the result before anything else. But as you move further in these competitions, your performances also have to match the results that you want, in my opinion. So let's move into some positive negatives and then player by player. Some positives, of course, we're through. Above all else, that's what mattered against Chile. Get the result needed to get through. Now, I'll probably sound pretty contradictory through this episode of saying the result is the most important, and if a result comes instead of a great performance, and that's what matters. But I am still going to be calling for a great performance as well, because I think it is fair to want both. Back on track, though, we are through. And you saw what it meant to these boys at full time when that whistle was blown. It meant the world to them, and as it should. Many people have written us off, assume we'd be the whipping boys of this group, but a respectable performance against Argentina, then a big win against Peru, and a draw against Chile. I'm not sure if I had said it on here on the Maple Footy podcast or if I had just been talking to people, but I did say before the tournament, a win against Peru and then a draw against Chile would be ideal, kind of figuring we weren't going to get much against Argentina, and then hope that those 4 points would be enough, and evidently it was. It is huge, and of course, quarterfinals awaits us against Venezuela. So Crepeau, what more can we say? He's been unreal. If he was playing for one of the top nations, he'd be getting all the applause throughout this tournament. He's went under the radar of those outside of Canada, and even some people who cover Canadian soccer aren't really giving him his flowers, and I think it's kind of ridiculous not to. He's been unreal. One of the players of the tournament, in my opinion, and definitely Canada's player of the tournament. Him being our player of the tournament, is that negative or positive? I'll let you decide. You know, I'm not sure you ever want your goalkeeper to be the player of the tournament because it kind of shows that you might be doing something wrong in front of him. But obviously, him being the player of the tournament also shows that he's been great when he's been called upon. So, I guess a double-edged sword, if you will. Now, I've got a positive and a negative. So, like, if we had, like, a Venn diagram, I guess this would be, like, in the center of positive and negative. So, we were playing the Copa way. We were playing a bit dirtier than what we're used to, looking for fouls, claiming fouls, getting in the ref's face, as well as the Chilean players' faces. Now, it's not my favorite style of football. I'm all for hard tackles. I love those. A bit of grit, absolutely. But some of this stuff is a bit cheaper, the dark arts of football, if you will. But that is the Copa way. It's what it's known for. Our boys did pull that out of the locker, and it does show a sense of experience in this squad that I'm not sure has ever been there. They knew coming into this tournament sooner or later that is how they'd have to play, and credit to them, they beat a Copa regular at their own game. Sousa got himself a red card, which really, I think, hampered Chile. They didn't play bad without the 11th man, but I think that's kind of the point. They still looked good when they were a man down, so maybe with another man, they could have made us pay on a different day, but inevitably, that's not the case. Now, negatives. While this was probably our most entertaining game of the group stage, it still wasn't a top-class performance from us. It probably was our best performance in all fairness, so I think that is a positive, but we are still missing that vintage Canada performance. But this was absolutely a step up, if you ask me. A performance good enough to get the job done. I must be in a good mood because even this negative isn't the worst negative I could possibly give. But a big negative, though, I do think is no proper shots on target until like the 75th or 80th minute. That is concerning coming into the knockout stages. We will have to play a bit more open and a bit more attacking, which we haven't done all tournament. Against Chile is probably the most attacking we've been, and that's saying something given how defensive-minded we were. And like I said, no real clear-cut shots until the very late stages of the game. Only 1 goal in 3 games is definitely not a flattering stat. We've done enough to get through, but now we're really going to have to get into the next gear if we want to continue to progress in this competition. Now we're going to go player by player. You already know the drill. Goalkeeper to defense to midfield to attack. Starting off once again with Crepeau. I already talked about him. And yeah, he just has been that good. He's in fine form right now. Back-to-back clean sheets to match his performances. This was probably his least busy night of the tournament, if you ask me. But he still had some big saves to make, commanded his box well, fills our defense and our supporters with the confidence back there too, which I think is a big difference maker. As a defender, you want to know that the guy behind you is just as good as the guys next to you, and Crepeau is definitely great at kind of lifting up our defense in that sense. Now looking over at our right back, Alistair Johnston, I've been a little bit critical of Johnston recently, saying he's not been that Johnston that we've come to know, but this was that Johnston performance, up there with Crepeau as our man of the match, I would say, and I wouldn't argue if you had said that he should have been our man of the match. I thought he was great. He He won just about every challenge he committed to, didn't do anything stupid to put himself in a bad position, which is very, very ideal. His distribution was on point, sending Larea and Buchanan behind the Chilean defense a few times. A proper performance from our number one right back, and yeah, just a very clean performance, and we need to start claiming him as the best right back in the world if we're being honest. And just, I think the world just needs to know that Alistair Johnston is, so yeah, just a very good performance overall. Definitely his best under Marsh, I would say. He just looked confident, assured, and a brick wall, in all fairness. They weren't really finding much joy down Johnston's right-hand side. So keep that up going into the quarterfinals for sure. Now looking at his fullback counterpart, our captain, Alphonso Davies. I feel like this was probably his most assured performance for us this tournament. He was very good defensively, which was important, as getting the clean sheet was crucial for us, and he definitely did his part. Despite Sanchez winning the official man of the match, I think he and Davies had a really hard-fought and even battle all game, as Davies kind of kept their star man at bay and off the score sheet. He did get forward a few times, which you're never going to complain about Davies getting forward. He is obviously probably our best going forward as well, so you're not going to complain. He did find some joy trying to link up with Schaffelberg, but once Liam Miller came on, you could tell he was a lot more comfortable on that left flank. And this game, I think, just showed me even more so that Liam Miller and Davies need to start together. They just look a lot better together, and the two of them, they just complement each other really well. No disrespect to Schaffelberg. I do love him, and I think he is a great player, but Miller and Davies just work a lot better on that left-hand side, in my opinion. Our center backs, first looking at Bombito, I actually think this may have been his worst performance of the tournament so far. He didn't look super confident or assured as he has in previous matches for us. He wasn't winning as many duels or challenges as he had in the last few. His distribution was pretty shaky as well. It just kind of seemed like a nervy performance from Canada's 15. Nearly did find himself in hot water as well, which he could have been sent off for making a punching motion at a Chilean player. Now, the player did play it, as new footage has kind of showed that Bombito didn't touch him, but regardless, he shouldn't be putting himself in that position, and I think it does just show a little bit of inexperience on Bombito's part, because yeah, you're kind of opening up a can of worms that you don't need to be opening up in that sense, because that could have been a red card. Obviously, he gets the benefit of the doubt, and it probably is the right call to not give him a red card, considering he didn't touch the guy. But still, you can't be doing that. You can't be making those motions to players. I don't really know what he's thinking, but yeah, just a little bit of lack of inexperience, and that those things in this type of tournament does come back to haunt you. So hopefully he kind of shakes that out going into the next game. And yeah, just a little bit better from Bombito. I think we know the level that he can perform at, so we're going to need to see it against Venezuela. His center back, Cornelius, I thought was the best center back on the pitch. A proper performance from him, I thought, which was much needed after a not so great showing against Peru, but he was covering a lot of space at the back, seemed like he was first to almost every ball, cut out crosses, looked calm and assured. His distribution at the back remains a great quality as we try to build from the back. Credit to Cornelius, as under Marsh, he's taken this chance and opportunity and has really run with it. He just looked really good, and I've really enjoyed seeing him play at the back for Canada. He looks a very, very good center back in this back four, and it's no surprise, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, that he's getting big links to some big leagues in Europe, and hopefully we see a move for him sooner or later. And now moving into our midfield, first looking at Jacob Schaffelberg, who gets the start after bagging an assist last time out, and I will say I'm a bit disappointed in his performance. He wasn't doing what he does best, running at guys, getting behind, creating chances. He was dispossessed quite easily on a number of occasions, and how I mentioned earlier that we kind of played that Copa way of, kind of doing those quote-unquote dark arts of the game. I think that really applies to Schaffelberg. He was looking for fouls, trying to rattle the Chilean players, where on one hand, you kind of love to see the shithousery from the Canadian, but Also, it did feel like he focused more on that instead of just really trying to play his type of game. And it just didn't really suit him, in my opinion. Like I said, it is kind of entertaining to see our boys kind of play in that sense. But when it's kind of coming at the expense of doing what you do best, is it really worth it? I'm not sure. Looking at the other flank with Richie Larea, a standard Larea performance, he kind of succeeded at what Schaffelberg was trying. He was the proper shithouse. He knows how to get under guys' skins and was pivotal to getting Sosa sent off. He was the man that was fouled both times in that sense of Sosa getting both of his yellows. And Larea was kind of baiting him on both occasions into making those fouls. So definitely, like, one of the big attributes of Larea's game is being that guy to kind of look for those fouls in that instance, and it definitely worked out here. He does suit this kind of Copa style at times, but away from that, he also found some joy on the right-hand side, loving those overlaps with him and Johnston to create chances. I think it was just a solid performance from the TFC man. Looking into our center, we really didn't look overrun in the midfield with Oso in for Kone. I do love Kone, but it does look like with the way he plays, he does leave us more open and susceptible to being overrun in the middle of the park. Oso doesn't play that way, which could be why we didn't look overrun. So if we're going to play Kone, I do think we need another midfielder in there so we don't let Eustáquio get overrun and having him do everything. Because Oso and Eustáquio looked really comfortable with each other. Some of that comes down to experience. Both Eustáquio and Osorio are two of our more experienced players in this squad. But yeah, Osorio was a welcome addition to the starting 11, and the game really suited him. Getting to operate in those low pockets of space really played well with Eustáquio. Osorio always found himself as a passing option and always an outlet ready to support another player. He was very calm on the ball, helped control the tempo of the game. As I mentioned, he didn't look overrun in the middle of the park. He also links up well with Larea and our two up top. Just a great option to have, in my opinion. He looked good off the bench against Peru and looked good here against Chile. I also think he's done enough to get a starting spot in the quarterfinal tie. His partner in the middle, Stefan Eustáquio, I think this was, in my opinion, his best performance of the tournament. The inclusion of Osorio, I think, really did help him, but he had so much more time on the ball to dictate the flow of the game. It felt like almost everything was going through Eustáquio. He controlled the game really well, looked very good in possession, and of course his distribution is always great. Kind of looking at something I want more of from Eustáquio is him on our set pieces. I know he is here and there, but I think consistently it should be him. I do love Davies, but he should not be on our set pieces. Eustáquio is great from dead ball scenarios, so I think they should be his to have. That's just my opinion. I just think he offers us more from those scenarios. Davies doesn't take them at club level, and he's not really showing that he should be taking them at this level when we have Eustáquio, who has proven to be very good with these opportunities. And then, yeah, looking at him in crunch time, even those last 10 minutes-ish, I thought Eustáquio really helped to take the sting out of Chile's game, held onto the ball, held onto possession, shutting it down, and yeah, just making sure that Canada saw the result. Once again, that experience really coming in handy. And then looking at our two strikers, firstly, Kyle Larin. I've been critical of him in Marsh's new system, but he was great this time out, I thought. Didn't get many real opportunities, but he did work hard off the ball and just pressed high, making it really hard for Chile to build from the back. He looked good in possession, holding up the ball and absorbing a lot of pressure when it came. A good performance for sure, and his best under Marsh. All that's missing is a goal, which will hopefully come sooner rather than later, and hopefully against Venezuela in the next round. Looking at his partner, Jonathan David, like Larin, he worked hard off the ball, and it was a solid outing for the Lille man. No goal for him this time out, but he dropped back a lot, providing chances instead of being the man to finish them off. A great bit of play from him, of course, for our offside goal, when he dropped back, found Buchanan, who put in a ball for Tani Olasehi, and just a half a yard off, but it just shows what Jonathan David can bring to this team and not being just a typical number 9, let me get a goal type thing. He offers a lot more. Looking at our subs, firstly, Liam Miller, he got the most time out, and I thought it was a good outing for our 23. He looked a lot better with him in. We looked a lot better with him in. And Davies looks more comfortable playing with him, as I mentioned. Miller looks a lot more effective on that left-hand side instead of the right-hand side like we had him playing in the Peru game. He's allowed to cut in, whip some dangerous crosses in, and even have a strike for himself. He looked good, and honestly, I'd start him again against Venezuela. That's my opinion. I think we look better with him in, and like I said, Davies looks more comfortable playing with him. We already mentioned him, but Tani Oluseyi, good cameo from him, worked hard off the ball, looks eager and hungry. His first goal will come. I think it's just a matter of time. Like I said, hopefully that first goal comes against Venezuela in the next round. And yeah, just another bright cameo from him. And looking at Tajon Buchanan, that's the Tajon Buchanan that we've come to know and love. He had that grip between his teeth. He really looked creative on the ball, looked ready to take on his man, wanted to create chances. Just a very good outing for Tage. And he's come under some criticism under Marsh, and it is a little bit warranted. I'm a lover of Tajon Buchanan. I think he's one of our best and most talented players in this squad, but he's been subpar under Marsh. So to see him kind of come on, and he did have that chip on his shoulder, ready to prove a point, and yeah, just looked really good off the bench. And like I said, just that Tajon that we've come to know and love in this Canada setup. And look at Kamal Miller, got about 2 minutes, really just brought on as another body behind the ball, see out the victory. And I mean, once again, big fan of Kamal Miller, and I wouldn't be upset to see him start next game. I'm not sure he will, but he had a solid outing against Peru outside of a couple shaky moments. And of course here he just kind of came on to help see out the victory. Not a whole ton to go off of from this performance for him, but yeah, just I'm a big fan of Kamal, and I wouldn't be upset to see him get more playing time, but that's up to Marsh, right? And so up next for us, of course, is the undefeated Venezuela, who finished top of Group B with 9 points out of 9. It won't be an easy task for our boys in red, but I do think it is doable. I've got faith in them. And of course, I'll be watching our first ever quarterfinal in the Copa America on July 5th. Put it in your calendar. It's going to be a big night for Canadian football. Win, lose, whatever happens, it's going to be a big night, okay? So definitely watch it. I'm optimistic. It's a big night, big test, big game. I'd love to see us get through to the semis, as it would be an unreal achievement. Now, us going into the quarterfinals does mean that we have at least one more episode of me covering our Copa run, which I'm thrilled about. I love talking about this team, these players. These are my favorite episodes to do. So the more I get to do, the happier I am. I love talking about the Canadian setup. I love talking about our Canadian boys. And so yeah, the further they go is better for me, because I get to keep doing these and not have to wait until the next international window. So keep going for further, guys. I'm enjoying it. And with all this being said, will you be watching our game against Venezuela? How do you think we'll fare? Let me know here or on Instagram at @officialsamlittle. And happy Canada Day to everyone listening on July 1st. Thank you for choosing to listen to the Maple Footy podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at @officialsamlittle on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.